Going live.
Going live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last episode of Model Schools Live for the year. And I can't think of any better way to end it than with a recent Pioneer Award winner, but we're going to wait to hold off on that. So if you're watching this for the first time, we schedule these during the year to get together, basically to reconnect as part of the instructional team here at the Regional Information Center, but more importantly, to hear your voices as well. So I'm Leslie Accardo, my esteemed colleagues, May Isaac and Alana Winnick. And for those of you that are here because you registered, I think you have an idea of what we're going to be talking about. And if you're just popping in serendipitously or decided to join us, we're going to be talking about what I guess we call it the Google 20% concept looks like in the classroom, and we're going to hear from someone that actually implemented it. But before we go any further, we wanted to remind you that we have a Google Plus community. We have a Today's Meet if you want to live chat with us. And to warm up, basically to warm up the room for Heidi before we turn it over to her, the question I posed to you ladies about 2 minutes before we went live is, if you had 20% of your time that you had complete autonomy over to do any kind of work within your realm of work, what would you do and what would it look like?
I said, I don't know if I could choose one thing. That would be really difficult for me to pick one thing to just focus 20% of my time on.
I think that's very indicative of our personalities and sort of like the work we do anyway, because we're always looking for like this creative solutions to bring somebody. So I think it's very hard for us,
Right.
particularly to choose a 20%. I was thinking about it and I was like, I would love to have the time to design a whole immersive course based on like original materials and media, just to make it like seamless and sort of like beautiful,
Right.
sort of like that, and to have a collaborative phase, something that's always evolving, but to have a nice framework to do that I think would be really enjoyable.
If you're watching this and in the chat room, we want to hear your voices because the question applies to you as well. If a building principal or an administrator came to you and said, what amounts to 1 day a week, 20% of your time, you have complete autonomy. You can rearrange your universe however you want. You can set the standards and achieve and have students do project-based work. What would you do for your 20%? So think about that. And as you pop in, we want to hear from you. But we are going to hear from someone that actually did it. So Alana, you're going to do Heidi's introduction because I think you know her the best.
I do.
Can
Okay.
we do something before we introduce Heidi?
Yes.
I want to turn the question back on Leslie.
Oh, yeah.
Leslie didn't answer.
Yeah, you didn't
question.
answer your own question.
I am going to wait.
Okay,
But you
So
have
okay.
an answer.
I do have an
Okay,
answer.
Okay,
so we will
we
not let
actually
you
gonna
do.
want to hear
Okay.
your answer because I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for that curveball. That's great.
So Heidi Bernasconi is a Clarkstown science teacher. She does marine biology is her specialty.
That's fantastic.
So neat.
She is this year's Lyric Pioneer Award winner
For teacher, yes.
for teacher, but really this has been an ongoing thing for her. So back in 2006, she began implementing Google Apps for Education before most people had. And then she was one of the first ones she got Chromebooks before anyone else ever had them. They were called CR48s.
Oh,
She
wow.
used them with her
Who
students.
knew?
Yeah, and then they eventually became Chromebooks. And she was also one of the Google Classroom pilots as well. So she used Google Classroom before anyone ever had. She's in the video. She's super pregnant in the Google Classroom video.
I remember.
How many
So-
times, Heidi, are you going to hear that? And
Yeah, so she won this year's Pioneer Award video. Pioneer Award, I made the video, so I watched hours of footage about her. And we just talked about it this morning. Her video so far is 130 something hits from just Friday.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so she is now implementing 20% time in her classroom, and the projects her students are doing are amazing. But I'll let her talk all about that.
Without
So-
further notice.
I'm inviting Heidi now.
So it's just so interesting. I want to ask her if one necessarily led to the other.
Yeah, I don't,
You
and
know, if you start out with this, is it a natural progression that you're gaining some time back and you're seeing a time shift in the room? Is it
Ah.
something that just you would naturally expect to happen, or
Yeah,
Was it
like it, like,
purposeful, and how much did you have to?
or did she plan
Struggle
to be
through.
able to have that free time, or did it arise
Right. And they need to
organically
be
from
filled.
it?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. But that's always, it's nice to have
Oh, here's
a
Heidi.
choice.
And
Hi.
Heidi is here.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
See that
Hello.
little with our fish tanks in the back.
Where are you, Heidi? In your room?
Yeah, in my classroom. Figured I should show off the marine tanks.
What do you have back there?
I have fish that we collect from the Long Island Sound. We go over to Rye and we collect like killifish, Asian shore crabs. Nothing too exciting. Well, that's not true. I think they're exciting. But.
I was gonna
Nothing too
say,
exciting, yeah.
no lobsters back in there.
No, I mean I do have crayfish on the other side of my of my tank, but they're freshwater. They're not long.
So Heidi, you're fresh off a really endearing experience. I think it was just Friday, yes, the Pioneer
Yeah.
Awards. And I just want to ask, how surprised at you when you actually saw the video footage of yourself?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize there was that much video, and I think Alana did such an amazing job on it. She was like so nervous. I had no idea what it was going to look like, and it was really nice to see a recap of everything I've done since 2006. You sometimes forget about all the stuff that you've been involved in.
Right. So Heidi, you know, the way that this usually works, I don't know if you've ever watched us do one of these before, but we, you know, think of this like an open interview and a platform for sharing. And I think you've established yourself really as one of the true Google pioneers. But this concept of what you've done with your 20% is fascinating. So we're probably going to go back and forth with questions and answers, and we're actually moderating a chat. And I see some things bubbling up here already. Do you want to just start and we'll ask questions as they arise, and anything, you know, as far as our minds go, if it's interesting, we're going to ask it. So I know we didn't debrief you about this.
I kind of did. I gave her the rundown of what it's going to be like.
But expect anything, and we'll relay questions to you from the chat room. So for those of us that think we know what 20% is, just tell us what it is so we have a good understanding.
Okay, great question. 20% is something that Google created for their engineers, where they're allowed essentially 1 day a week to work on any project that they ready to solve a problem within Google. If you ask a Google engineer, it's really like 120% time, but they are encouraged to spend part of their time working on independent projects. And so things like Gmail and Google Calendar are things that were developed from a 20% project. So I got to go down to Google to see some of their engineers present their 20% projects, and it was really interesting. And that was 2 years ago, and I left there thinking, how can I do this in my classroom? Like, how would it look in my classroom? What class would I try it out with? And the rest is kind of history with that.
Do you have any idea where that 20% came from? Was that just an easy percentage to think about? Okay, presumably 5 days a week, 1 day a week sounds reasonable.
Yep.
Or was it more scientific than that?
No, I think it's just like the 1 day a week, or you can do anything for 1 day a week with a 5 day workday.
I have a question.
I was gonna say, I actually looked something up, and did you know about the 3M version of that?
The 3M, no, maybe.
Post-it people, they started in the 1950s with the 15%. And that's where Post-it notes and masking tape actually arose out of that 15% time.
Oh, that's awesome.
The concept, but Google, I think, really took it and made it more of a formal, easier. Because I mean, how are you going to figure out 15%? You know, out of 5 days, it's a little hard. I think 20% works well with the work week. But
I also think that teachers are doing 20% time in their classroom, and they don't call it that.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, you know, this is not something that I created. This is not something that is new. I think this is something, like, I look back when I was in high school, we were given 4 years to work on an independent project that we had to present to a community, and it had to be rated. And I feel like I've already done 20% time in my high school career. It just was called something different.
So Heidi, how intentional did you have to be, or do you have to be? And because, you know, if all of us looked at our colleagues, we would probably see signs of that 20% in action, because there's when I think of it, I think of choice, flexibility, autonomy. I think of all those things.
Yep.
Passion.
Yeah, and it's choice
Yeah.
and passion. So how does it actually play out for you? What was the first thing that you did, if you can remember back?
Well, the first thing I did was develop the rubric. Like, how does this look? How are they going to be assessed? Should they be assessed? What would it look like? And so I piloted it not last year, but the year before. No, last year, last school year was the first year I tried it. And I decided in order to try something that I thought was going to be long term, I had to spend a lot of time preparing the infrastructure. What is that going to look like in my classroom? What are the kids going to be accountable for doing? How do I know that they're not going to be on task, be staring and Googling all day on, like, I don't know, the latest basketball results? So I had to create some type of template that could ensure that they're doing work on what they're supposed to be doing on that 20% time. And that took a lot of time. It took me very long. It's evolving. My template's still evolving. But I had to come up with that framework. And part of the framework was a proposal sheet. And then the other part that I knew I wanted to incorporate was a rubric, where they developed the rubric. And so that's kind of where I started, which was only those two components. What did they want to do, and how did they want to be graded on it?
And what kind of initial responses did you get back from them, and how much did you have to steer or coach them into more rigor? Or maybe some students were, the scope was way too big. How much direction did you have to give them when they actually built their own rubric?
That's a good question, because I remember this one girl from not this year, but last year, just staring at a blank computer, and she knew like what she wanted to learn, and she knew what she wanted to research, but she had no idea how to fill out a rubric. And she had a real concern. She's like, and her quote was, "I've never been given the opportunity to do anything I wanted, and it's a little thing." And so I remember that, because I was like, wow, that's actually sad that she's a senior and has never been given the opportunity to do anything that she wanted in school. And she persevered. She actually did a really great project. She looked up, prosthetics for like shark attacks and stuff like that. And different levels of it, because that's a field she wants to go into, and she did a phenomenal job. It took her a lot of courage to get to the point where she could think on her own.
That's a great statement there, and that's sort of leads me into a question, and it sort of builds off of what Leslie said. How much coaching? Like, do you find it's hard for your students to embrace this, especially at that upper level where there's maybe a large concern for they want to be right, or they want to get a good grade, and they're very conscious of what's the final result going to be? Do you ever have to like?
Yeah, I find that this generation needs a lot of coaching, because they are always told what we want from them.
Right.
And here they have to tell me what they're going to give me. And it's just a different mindset. And so they have to develop the proposal of the project. And initially I liked it to align with what they want to major in college. So can you connect the ocean with your future career? And that's challenging. It takes a creative mind to kind of connect those pieces. And sometimes some kids I have to coach, and some kids I don't. They run with it. And so every kid's a little bit different, but they do have a hard time kind of finding that they can do whatever they want. If they make a goal that's so unrealistic,
Right.
I have to kind of guide them and say, hey, that's a really cool goal. Do you think you're going to be able to do that in this time frame? Or do you think that you're going to be able to find enough research for that? And if they still say, yeah, they can challenge. If they fail, it's okay.
Heidi,
But they have to be aware that they're going to set them up for that.
can you give us an idea of some of the more, I don't want to say interesting, because it's interesting to them, so they're choosing it, but what are some of the proposals and topics that you see that they're coming up with?
Do you have that slide from TechX? Do you have that?
Yeah,
slide
I'll
from-
slide share right now, actually. So I'll slide share. And here are just some sample ideas. Can you guys see the screen?
Not yet. I'll tell you when we see.
Oh, you know why? Because I never hit screen share. That's why. I never hit OK. All right, so you should see it now.
Beautiful.
Okay, so a lot of them, if they want to go into literature, they'll write either a children's book or a blog. I had one girl that wrote a whole book of poems of all different styles of poetry. And if they do anything where there's going to be an audience of a reader, I do have them keep a certain lexile. So it's whatever Lexile they choose, but they have to then check for their writing for a certain Lexile. So if they write a children's book and they're at a 4th grade level, they have to monitor themselves and check that they're keeping it at a 4th grade level. Research papers, are common because if a person wants to work by themselves and something that they are just interested in learning and they want to do more. I had one girl that wanted to go into event design.
Tell the story. Tell the real story.
The real story.
Like in the good way, like you did at Tech Expo.
In the good as opposed
Yeah, like
to the bad
no,
way.
like she
Not
gets
like we're
very
live on the-
animated.
not
She
like we're
gets
live on the
she
internet
gets
or
very
anything.
animated. It's really exciting.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's just interesting. Like it's basically what they want to learn. So if they don't want to learn anything, then I'm like, okay, well, you're just okay being just boring and status quo. You're telling me you don't want to evolve as a person.
Well, what happens in that case?
Well, what they do is I have to give them direction. So if they don't know what they want to major in and they don't want to know what they want to learn, then I kind of guide them and say, okay, well, here's something that I can use. Like they can make something for me. Like maybe they'll make a dissection guide, or maybe they'll teach a class or whatever it is. But I try to encourage them to do something they're interested in. And I do a lot of kids like that are interested in fashion, and they divide like a fashion line of dresses, and some kids want to go into engineering. So they built something. I have 2 kids right now that are going to research how to build something that's going to emit electromagnetic waves to deter sharks from surfboards. And they're going to tackle it, and they want to figure that out. They're actually going to connect with a physics teacher tomorrow in my class to help them understand a little bit more, because it's physics beyond my expertise.
And that's actually, Heidi, that was the question that was forming in my mind.
Yeah.
Did you ever experience any kind of professional intimidation with some of these projects?
All the time. They know more. Most of my kids are smarter than me, and they haven't figured that out yet because I always tell them I'm smarter than them. But
That's so confident, I think, for you to be able to say that. There are so many
Yeah.
people who couldn't say something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't tell them that, but I have.
Now they know.
Well, now they know. No, but there are so many students that are just smarter than me when it comes to law and politics. And this one girl wanted to write a bill, and that was her last 20%. And I don't know what a bill looks like. I majored in bio, so that's where my degree's at. So I had to look up like what are the components of a bill. So when she presented me with her rubric, I knew that it was sufficient. So I'm learning a lot about laws, and I'm learning from it. And to me, that's more important. That's a piece that's important to me for this job too. I don't want them to learn things that I already know and that we're all going to discuss in class.
Heidi, tell them the outcome of the one student who was the event planner.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So one girl wanted to go into event planning. Like that's what she wants to major in. So I had her hook up with my department design or science honor society. Part of there's like 5 pieces to my 20%. There's the proposal. Actually, I'll screen share and I'll show you a screen of the 5 pieces if you don't mind.
No, we would love to see it.
Yeah, just as I go through them so you can kind of see the outline. So do you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so they have to propose their idea, and then they have to develop the rubric as to how they want graded. And then they do weekly checkpoints based on their goals. And then they develop their final piece are the Bloom's rubric and the final reflection. And I'll go over the Bloom's rubric separate because it's kind of like thick. But the final reflection, one of the questions they have to ask themselves is, do you think you did a good enough job to keep your job? I'm in a profession where maybe, I have to, my APPR score or whatever is going to, someday affect my employment. But some companies, when they're looking to downsize, it's going in that company that's going to say, is my position important? Am I important? Am I valuable to this company? And so that's the question they have to answer is, did they show that they are a hard worker or that their product is worth keeping their job? And this one girl didn't do that good of a job. And she recognized that, and she wrote that in the reflection that she realized that she didn't, and this is what she would have done better. And so she didn't lose points in that final reflection because she did realize that she did a horrible job and should have been fired. This year, I had another girl that kind of also did a crappy job, but in that question said that she did a fine job and would keep her job. And I made a comment back being like, absolutely not. I actually wouldn't have hired her week 2's reflection. Like you set unrealistic goals. You never met them. You basically are unreliable with everything you told me that you were going to do. I would never hire you or keep you as an employee.
She's like so honest with her students.
Heidi,
Yeah.
a question came up in the chat room, and so do you do this for any other course or section other than marine biology?
Well, right now I've only really piloted in marine bio because I do have a regents in my biology class, and I want to give them freedom to do whatever they want. And I would love to have, bio do a 20% review guide, but I hate standardized tests. So why would I give one day a week to them studying for a test I wish they didn't have to take? So, and it also defeats the purpose of 20%. So I have to think about how 20% is going to look in my bio class.
And that's, I think that, the concern is covering the material.
Yep. Yeah, with snow days, I'm already crunched for time with bio. To take away, like, if I'm sick, I'm coming to school, put it that way, for the rest of the year. I can't lose another minute. So to do 20% time with them, I'd have to figure out what I can trim and cut out curriculum-wise.
Can I ask a quick question? You mentioned snow days and things like that. How do you have that time for your check-in for your students? Is it face-to-face or is it virtual? Is it, to use one of our previous guests' words?
Say the word.
Interstitial.
Those
interstitial words.
Yeah.
Interstitial words. Interstitial moments. Like,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Is it during class time or is it outside?
It's both. So they get a day a week. This particular project, they get every Wednesday for the rest of the year to work on their project. So I give them face-to-face feedback, but I also give them feedback on their reflections. So I'm actually going to screen share real quick to show you what a reflection page would look like.
Great.
I'm actually just going to go back to my presentation. So I think I have a screenshot of those of the questions.
Great.
And yeah, so like here's the top of the reflection. Every week, they tell me what they want to accomplish, who are they going to work with, where are they going to do this, and when are they going to do this. So there's been, right now, we don't have any more breaks. So every Wednesday in class is going to be a 20% day. I figured out I can allot that time. But in the beginning of the year, with the snow days and with breaks, 20% time sometimes was done outside class and over a break. So that's why this piece is important, because there's going to be times where it's 20% of the class work. So it may not be 20% of our time together, but it's going to be 20% of our homework, of our classwork. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that might be you have to meet with a group outside class at the library, or maybe it's you do it on your computer. And that also plays part of your goals. Like if there was a 20% day and it was over a break, you have to make a realistic goal for that break. So if one of your group members was going on vacation or you weren't going to be around, then you need to figure out what are you going to do, what are you going to be capable of doing that week. And I had a girl last year that said she wanted to start her experiment and set it up in class. And I made points. I'm like, well, that's a very unrealistic goal, being that we don't have class next week or on break. Like you need to realize that when you're making these goals, you have to actually accomplish them. And so the end of the week, they write like whether they did not meet their goal or if they did and why, something that they're proud about. What is a weakness that they have they need to work on, and then what's their new goal, and then I give them feedback. And I do look at every single file that they submit. If they said they researched 4 organisms and they only did 3, then they don't get credit. They didn't meet their goal, so they lied to me. So it's part of, they get graded on basically making realistic goals and justifying what they did and what they didn't do.
I think that's a skill right there. That that's something that we can't sort of measure usually or say, but they're to be able to make a realistic goal.
Yeah.
How many adults have a hard time making a realistic.
Listen, I've coached 26 seasons of track. I counted because I coached all 3. And I'm just done coaching and I was reflecting on it. And I have so many people on my team that make so many unrealistic goals. It was kind of like the thing I needed to tackle. Like you need to make a realistic goal for you. And it might be different for somebody else because of their strengths, and your strengths are different. So like, they learn about themselves and learn what they're capable of doing.
So Heidi, one of our friends in the chat room wants to know, how many kids do you have? Because this is a tremendous amount of time that you spend
Yes.
reviewing all the work. And
yeah.
It could become overwhelming. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, it's overwhelming. No, I'm joking. I love it, so it's not overwhelming to me yet. I have 60 students that are in marine bio. So I could have anywhere from 50 to 60 projects. Sometimes they're allowed to work with teams if they want. but a lot of times they choose to do individuals. And regardless of whether they're in a group work or an individual, everybody is responsible for making and filling out the reflection sheet. So it takes about 2 hours a week to really grade and look at the reflections and go through the data and look at their, and look at everything. But it's not bad. It's not, reading essays. It's a different type of grading, where you're looking for more of just they said what they were going to do, and, looking to see if you can challenge them to make their project better. But having that time in class does help a lot, because I see what they're doing. So I know that when I hit the reflection, I know some groups are so on task, I don't necessarily need to go and see their work because I saw it in class. It's other groups and I'm like, could have been on ESPN all period, or he could have been working on 20%. We'll see when he hands in his reflection.
Now, what do you currently struggle with in this whole process? Because you've grown by doing it. You didn't wait to perfect it. So what are some of your pain points still?
Question, and it's something that I'm just starting to think about, because my challenge is being okay with maybe them not aligning it with the ocean. And that might be is a stupid challenge, but when I see what other teachers are doing with their 20% time, they do a lot of work in the community, or maybe it's just on anything that kid desires and wants. And, for me, I teach a college level class for marine bio, and I would love for them to focus on something that aligns with the ocean. And so I can benefit from it, and that I can be interested in it. And I don't know if I'd want to say if you want to, design a charity for something that's unrelated to the ocean. I don't know if I want to give up my class time to give them that type of freedom. I hesitate with that, and I'm not sure why.
Heidi, I'm just curious, do any of your graduates, I don't know if you have enough of them that you've actually, shepherded on, but do any of your graduates keep in touch with you to reflect on what that experience meant in terms of them entering the workforce or going to college?
It's kind of virgin yet still. I just started doing projects last year, so those kids are just finishing their freshman year in college. But I know another challenge, and it kind of leads into this. My new tackle for the rest of this year and over the summer next year is going to be student branding. Who are you when you go to college? And that's kind of, so going back to, my hesitation of allowing kids to branch away from the science piece of it. I think next year I'm going to have every student have a blog. And maybe their reflections are going to be on a blog. I don't know what that's going to look like yet. So this is all in my head right now. But I want them to leave school with a portfolio.
Yeah.
And if they're to include things that they've done in science and in English and in math and for history and stories they wrote, if they want to make that blog as interdisciplinary as they can, that is phenomenal. And I would love that, because I love seeing their artwork. I love reading their stories that they write. But they don't have a space, and they're not given an opportunity in every class to create a portfolio to take with them to show to college, this is who I am. If you Google me, I want their blog to come up. I don't want their Instagram and Twitter to come up. I want the blog to come up to show who they are. And so I want to blend that idea with 20% next year.
And Heidi, when in your realm of colleagues, who else do you see? Is this something that you basically had to build and you're bouncing ideas off of, or is it something that is really the culture of your building or your district?
I built it on my own. Years ago, when I went to Google and I came with the idea, I really built it on my own. And I worked a lot with John Crosskoff. He left Clarkstown at that point, but just really going through things. And there was another administrator, David Jacob, who really helped me with the Lexile reader. And so different pieces of it, I've reached out to different colleagues who that's their strength to help me out with. But I really developed it and wanted to pilot it by myself before I even told anyone else about it, because I wanted to troubleshoot for them, if that makes sense. Because what I found out, when I'm teaching technology to other teachers, is if I haven't already troubleshooted for them, they're not going to latch on to a new idea. Right. And so this year, I have had incredible support from my administration. My principal loves the idea. He's come and observed my 20% days multiple times. The principal from the other high school in our district has observed my class last week with my other principal. We've had meetings. I have maybe 2 to 3 meetings with other teachers, with my principal. I have just another meeting tomorrow with another teacher just to get feedback on her 20%. So she's starting. So it's really like taken off. My principal let me present it at a faculty meeting to other teachers. So I've been really infiltrated with a lot of teacher interest in it, and it's awesome. So, you know, we're thinking about how could we make this district-wide. We're not ready to go that big yet. It has to be piloted and built up small, but wouldn't that be phenomenal if one day a week was spent teachers getting 20% time to work with other teachers? That's something that we're looking into. What would that look like? How would that function? Where would the kids go? So we're trying to develop that and design it.
Wow, that's a really neat concept.
We should ask her. Heidi, what would you do if you had your own 20% time?
Yeah, do you join in with them, or
Yeah.
do you
Well, it's so funny you asked that. No, I personally, I would love to do a couple. I want time during the day to take classes that I never had an opportunity to take in my high school. There's so many. If I had the perfect schedule, if I had some of these kids' schedules, well, some schedules I don't want, but some classes I'm so interested in. I would love to be able to sit in a certain lesson or two and be a student for a day. I would love to sit and observe other teachers and swap classes and teach history for the day and see what it's like and just be more interdisciplinary. You know, or I don't know, maybe a school-wide charity. You know, like designing and just having time during the day to design something like that. There's so many ideas that. You know, I surveyed the staff on that very question. What would you do if you were given time to their teachers? And a lot of them said they want to work with other people in other disciplines to try to create like a team curriculum. Like how I teach math and science might be different about how they're doing graphing in their math class. And it causes conflict with student learning. And you can figure that out in given time. That might, you know, some stuff like that.
It's amazing. The interest is there. The raw materials are there. Everyone is so pressed for time, but this model actually creates that time.
It
actually
carves it out.
carves it out and builds it.
It makes it sacred almost too. If you
It's
gave it that
undisturbed,
day,
yeah.
you know that your Wednesday is going to be.
That's what it is for Wednesday.
Yeah, but that's what I know. She said the Wednesday, and it's sort of nice that you designate the day. Have you ever had to switch it around in the week? Or
Yeah.
Wednesday's a problem day.
I mean, Wednesday's just kind of like the middle of the week, so it breaks up the week for us, you know, so it's kind of like nice. It's also a day like, you know, Fridays, kids might want to have a 3-day weekend. I'm talking about seniors here. So senioritis kicks in and the end of the year as well. And vacations don't really happen on Wednesdays for days off. So it's like kind of a good day of the week for us. It's always usually consistently a day we have during the week.
Heidi, has anyone ever started and for some reason they either had to do a major course correction or go back to the drawing board?
Wait, ask that one more time.
Has anyone ever started a project or a proposal and then midway through they discovered they're either A, not passionate about it, B, it's underwhelming or overwhelming, or for whatever reason they have to come to you and say, look, I need to renegotiate the terms of this. Has anyone ever done that with you?
Yes, couple times, and that's okay. That's actually part of the learning process. You know, the whole idea of 20% is what do you want to learn? And so going back to me having to coach them, I don't want to tell them what I want to know. I don't want to tell them what I want to learn, because I want to learn a lot of things. But it's something that they need to be interested in, and sometimes they find out that maybe they bit off more than they can chew, or they're just not interested in it. And so what I have them do is just give me a verbal proposal at that point of what would they change to in order to switch their project over. And then they just have to rubric. So the only thing that they have to then revamp completely is that rubric, because their project's going to be different.
Heidi, is there any way you can show a visual without being too explicit in terms of either a student rubric or a project proposal?
Yeah. I'll show you. I have the proposal is just, here's a blank one. This one is just, you know, what are you going to do? Who are you going to work with? What's the title? How long is it going to take? How does this connect with your future career? That's important for me. And why would I care about your project?
Right.
You know, like, what am I going to learn from it? Is there a particular audience that you want to share it with? So the proposal is just kind of straightforward. But the rubric So the rubric is just kind of blank. The only thing they have to have are citations, because the idea is you're researching something that you don't know. So you have to take outside sources. And in science, we use APA.
Yeah.
So I'm very, like, if you get caught plagiarizing, whatever. But they fill out the rest of the components. And so here's a sample rubric for 2 kids that wanted to be a student teacher. So they actually designed a lesson and then came into my bio class to teach it. And so they made a pre-assessment. They made a post-assessment. I use a lot of technology in the classroom, so they felt really comfortable then creating Google Forms, creating a pear deck it was actually pretty awesome. They created a pear deck to quiz my students about how they did during the lesson and engage them. And so that's a rubric. They wanted me to grade them on their Google presentation, which were their notes, how enthusiastic they were, did they keep eye contact with the class, or did they just read off the slides, how relevant was everything they said to the topic that they said they were going to teach, and did they have interactive activities. And so that's what they wanted graded on. This person, this was hard to read, so I apologize because I know it's blurry on my screen, is a blog. So they had a certain Lexile that they wanted to keep. And this picture right here in the Lexile box is they inputted a screenshot of the Lexile reader to show what it was at the end. They wanted 5 posts. They could always go back and change that. So like going back to goals, if they originally said 10 posts and they realized that they just weren't capable of reaching that goal, they can go back and change their rubric to the day they hand the project in.
Wow.
Yeah. So because the thing is, like, you have to think about it, like how I thought my year was going to go in my school. Like I do lesson plans every single week, and every single week my lesson plans are completely different than what I thought was going to happen from week to week. So that's ridiculous. That's how bad I am at planning out things. So
Well,
of course the rubric is going to have to change.
It's a great life lesson because, and I'm sure as a parent, because of the video, that's the reason we know that.
Yes.
Oh yeah, my big pregnant belly.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You can say, I'm going to do A, B, C, and it doesn't always go that way. But I think that's important to, we talked about sort of modeling for your students. We had somebody in the comments who said, they'd like to do their art teacher and they'd like to do artwork at the same time. And I said, that's a terrific skill that sometimes I think we forget about just because we do it naturally, like the modeling, like you're modeling that sort of resiliency, that sort of ability to change to your students. And I love the fact that you're giving that ability to them to change their expectations, to modify them as they go along. They're not stuck on one thing.
Well, things change as you're doing
your progression.
Yeah. So you always have to modify.
We had a question on the back, and I know it's probably off, but she wanted to know how many other teachers are doing this right now. Like, do you have other teachers that are doing this 20%, or have they just expressed interest in
Right now I have, well, first of all, some teachers are doing it already and they don't even realize or call it something different. And there's a lot of art teachers that already do that. So believe it or not, one of my biology students who I do not do 20% time with, she is a little ahead in her art class and her art teacher does do 20% time. And so she gave me the opportunity to work with my student so we can design a biology and art project merged together. So this student, and during her free periods, is now coming to me, and we're designing her 20% project for her art class together. And it's going to be bio-influenced. And we designed it yesterday, and it's going to be phenomenal. I'm super excited about it. And maybe more than her, I don't know. But I'm really excited about it. So we're going to meet again tomorrow, I think, just to kind of recap of and stuff. So right now at my building level, I have, I think, 3 teachers that are implementing it since I've taught them how, and I do it. And I have 4 or 5 more that are definitely interested in doing it for next year, and I've had meetings with. So it's it's hard. I presented it just a couple of weeks ago, and we're all crunched for time. So for someone to kind of tackle something new right now is challenging for a lot of teachers. But I've seen a lot of interest in the idea, and just the idea of maker spaces, giving a kid a space to do whatever he wants, and it just every conference I've been going to, it's always been the stress. Kids need to have time during the day to work on something that they're interested in. If we always tell them what we want from them, and then they go into the workforce, Dr. Engzel said something a couple years ago when he was the keynote speaker for the Tech Expo. He was one of the best keynote speakers ever. I'm obsessed with him. And he basically said that if I hire you as an employee, I don't want to tell you what you need to do. That's why I hired you, because you already know what needs to be done. Right. And I think that we go through schooling in high school. Here are the standards. Here are the skills. Here's how you take this test. Here's the rubric. Here's what I want from you. Here's what this looks like. And there's value to that, because there's certain styles of writing that need those certain components, and the kid needs to learn what that's supposed to look like. But when they're not given a chance to explore those skills on something that they're interested in, they go to the workforce and they don't know what to do.
It's that balance of accountability and autonomy.
Yeah.
False dichotomy. When you increase one and you decrease the other, I really think it's a false dilemma.
But it's also, this is an area where they can do it with support. They almost have a safety net with trying these things out.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's no risk.
Yeah.
Like in this project, there's no risk. If you fail, that's awesome, because maybe you'll learn something cooler from it. There's no risk. You are graded on whether you met your goals or not. You are graded on a rubric that you developed.
I'm sorry,
But Heidi, can you tell them about the challenges you had with the rubric with some of your students, and how they weren't developing like rubrics that were assessing what you really wanted them to?
Well, okay, so they have to run everything by me. The first 2 weeks of running this project are maybe the most time consuming in grading, because you're reading through the proposals and you have to really think about whether they're capable of doing this, right. Or whether it's super far-fetched, or whether it's not challenging enough. Last night, a teacher just called me because she feels that one of her kids' 20% projects isn't challenging, and she doesn't know how to approach him on that. And I'm going to answer that with my Bloom's rubric. And so I want to show you how I do a Bloom's rubric, and my Bloom's rubric is going to solve her problem. Right. But what I do is, you want your kids to challenge themselves. If they're just going to do a project on something they already know and they're already comfortable with, then they're happy at their status quo. And basically, they're saying that they don't want to change and they don't want to evolve. And I'm not okay with that, because, I'm constantly changing to evolving to keep up with the evolving and changing world. So if they're capable, they're fine with who they are right now. I'm not fine with that. And the real life is not going to be fine with that. Mm-hmm. And so I want them to challenge themselves. And that's where I spend a lot of time looking through their proposals to see if it's a really good idea. And same with the rubric. There are components to the rubric that I may find essential. And so I have a little disclaimer underneath my rubric that once I give my feedback, if they don't add it to the rubric, there's a chance I'm going to add it to the rubric at the end of the project. So if I feel the rubric is not, and there's things that were missing that I thought were necessary, and I gave them constant feedback throughout the whole process about how those items and components needed to be part of it, and they chose not to listen, they're going to get graded on the rubric that in my mind should have existed in the first place.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's an interesting. How many times have you had to pull that out?
Not many. My kids are really good, and they listen to the feedback. If you give them enough feedback, they'll listen to it. If you don't give them any, and then down the road, oh, by the way, you should have done this, then it's point. If you have to,
it's neat, and I think a lot of this, whether you mentioned it about being a track coach, it's the plateau effect, where you'll choose something that you're inherently good at and that you can produce because it's comfortable. But it sounds like you're building in a certain percentage of stretch and pain, and that's really how the muscles grow and develop. So it almost me. How many years? You said 16?
No, I 26 seasons. 20? So okay. I coached for 10 years, but there were 26 seasons in those 10 years.
Wow. I really like that analogy. I like that.
That's a great.
Well, no, that's where she's probably pulling a lot of these coaching. That she's actually a coach, and she 20% time you're coaching your students.
No. I'm just saying it's nice, to sort of relate that, and I think that coming up with different ways to sort of relate it, different people will inspire them. They'll understand that completely, and I think it's unique that you know, Heidi brings those two parts in, and the biology part and the coach part are sort of fused to be this amazing opportunity that she's been able, it's given rise to her ability, I think, to really flourish.
And you know what she also does? I said, your students must love you because she's so enthusiastic and energetic, and she's so honest with them. Things that she has told me she says to them.
Are they surprised that you're honest, Heidi?
They're not surprised at this point. When
they first come in, you know, have they had that experience with teachers?
Yeah, I'm kind of brutally honest. I don't like to sugarcoat things. I'm not rude to them. I'm not mean, although they may take it that way. But listen, if I'm going to tell you honest criticism, I'm expecting you to give me that honest criticism back. But if I tell you,
you ask them for that. I remember we were just talking about that. You ask them like anonymously. She wants them to criticize her and tell her what she needs to do to improve.
I do it on a Google form. Yeah, I have all my students fill out a Google form like halfway through the year. Half of it's reflecting on themselves and half of it's reflecting on me. So it's like, what do you do outside of class? Like what learning style, and like how do you study? And then it starts on me. Like, am I fitting your learning style needs in my class? Like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong?
What's a piece of feedback that you got that either surprised you or really inspired or encouraged you?
I have to think. There's a lot. Some feedback is, you know, you got to read into it. Like, I don't know who posts it, so it's hard sometimes to you know, like, are they just angry at you? You know, like one kid wrote feedback because he didn't like my due dates, how I posted them or whatever. Like, I don't know. So whatever. I changed the way I post my due dates to fit his needs, I guess. You know, but and it's just interesting. Like, some of maybe we have too many projects going on in class. You know, and some maybe, you know, have organization issues, but then some like the organization that class is. Every kid's different. Yeah. So it's a nice reminder that when you have 30 kids or 30 kids in your class, everybody is different. They all come with different strengths and different weaknesses. And, you know, you have to kind of capitalize on their strengths and work on their weaknesses. And it's really hard to figure out what those are throughout the year. And so this project is hoping to capitalize on their strengths.
And Heidi, another question that came up, is it a prerequisite that they share this body of work with others? Some of them might design, you know, things that are by nature, they have wider audiences. I don't know if you have kids doing, you know, public service announcements or whatever it is that they produce. How does that get shared? Is it just part of the work, or do you have to encourage them to do that?
That's a great question. For the first project where they're relating it to their careers, they don't necessarily have to have an audience. It could be something that they just share with the class, or maybe they just share with me and it's something they just build. But ideally, when you do something, you want it to be for something. So hopefully they could create an audience, whether we can get it to that audience or not. This time around, everybody is producing something that's going global and is going live. And with that, every one of my students needed media releases so that their work and everything could be published online. So it's something that districts have to consider with the Parent Bill of Rights. Yeah. You know, what are they posting on public domain, and do you have permissions to do that? And so I would like to actually show you, if I could.
Show them that form that.
Yeah, my latest one. Yeah. So one of my groups, they're so good. This group, they're like the group that you just know they're on task all the time. They created a survey that looks like this. They created this on their account: plastic, consumer friendly or environmentally harmful. And they just kind of go through, they age, location, education level, gender, collect all those general demographic information, because you never know how it's going to play out with how you analyze your data. And they just, you know, general Google form on plastic use. What they did is they posted it to their college Facebook groups, their Twitter, like their social media, not mine, theirs, like they're private. And I mean, they have, I'm just going to scroll, that you can see it's pretty substantial. But here's like the graphs, like they have 129 responses, 2 more from this morning, Alana, when you and I were chatting this morning.
Look where the responses are from, though.
Yeah, and so, but like they have like from, I saw Korea, I saw Greece. Here's Korea. So they have all kinds of different, like it's literally international data. France, and so a lot of them are just high school. That's where they're posting, but they're looking at plastic use. And so now what they're going to do in the next week or two is they're going to every week now for their 20%, they're going to look at this and analyze this data, and then they are going to project. They want to make a presentation that they're going to present to the class their findings. In regards to what is the global use of plastic and what is their awareness of the chemicals in plastic, like if they're bad or not. And because that's kind of one of the issues that we talk about.
Heidi, when you first started doing this, did you have to prep them? Did you have to prime the pump, or either with was there a notification to parents in terms of your student this year, we're going to be doing something a little different, so in support of them, or if you have any questions, how much did you basically have to announce or broadcast what you
Well, it's actually hard to introduce this project to them because there's so many components. Like the template is 11 pages long, and I find that if I go over every component, it's going to be incredibly overwhelming for them. So I kind of just say, hey, we're going to do a project. It's going to be 1 day a week. It's going to be whenever you want. You're going to propose it to me, and the next week you're going to develop a rubric on it. And then I just kind of stop there. And then, then we get into the reflections. All right, now we're going to start reflecting. And then I go over the reflection piece.
I love that approach.
You start with a slow reveal almost.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not introducing this massive overwhelm, because some folks in the chat room mentioned, for some kids, this is an opportunity for them to flourish, but it could feel very crushing. So it's like you're doing the iterative release. You're not over messaging it, is my point.
Yeah.
This is what it is, and then you let it play out.
Can I show you guys my Bloom's rubric?
Yes.
So what I have them do, I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to use the one for my presentation. So because actually, I don't like how that's looking. Because everybody does a different project, so all their projects are different, I provide them with the Bloom's taxonomy. So some kids are writing children's books, and some kids are building engines or designing engines that run on salt water. So the level of complexity is significantly different from kid to kid. So how do I account for that? How do I make a children's book worth 100 points and someone generating an engine worth 100 points, right? Like that's hard to justify because everyone's going to put in a different amount of work, and it's not really fair, and you're always going to have that student that's going to run with it and whatever. So what I have them do is I give them all these verbs. And what they have to do is they have to highlight in green all the verbs that they've matched in their project. And then they have to justify those verbs for me. So like evaluating is the highest level. So you get 4 points for the verbs describe that you feel like your project met. And they have to describe it to me. And it could be part of the product or it could be part of the process. Like if you critique something, like when did you critique it? Did you critique it in your process? It's something I can find in the project, and it's very subjectively graded. If I don't feel like you've justified why you fit that verb, you're not going to get points for it. And so the maximum amount is 25 points for that particular setting. But if you are someone who did not challenge yourself and you're very like low-level verbs because all you did was define or describe or you matched things or whatever, then you have to do a lot more to reach those points.
It reminds me, in gymnastics when you have scores for technicality and difficulty.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Oh, Alana, you should know that.
With rubric Scrabble. All I could think of was a 10-point word. So
yeah.
Call it Rabble, maybe.
Right.
Rubric Scrabble.
Yeah, I like that.
So Heidi, we want to be mindful of your time, and I want to give people that are actually with us a chance to log any more questions they have. I thought maybe we'd hit you with a lightning round. One more question for each
I
of
just
us.
wanted to show one thing because I think it's a really cool tool that people will think it's not really so relevant of the 20% time, but it's really cool. Show them about the debate thing that you do with your students.
Oh, yeah. So TriCiter is a website that one of my colleagues has shown me this year. And it's free. You just make an account. Actually, you just log in with your Google account. And it allows your students, wherever the participants are, to post ideas. And so what I had my students do is post pros and cons of fish farming, which is something that we're debating. And well, we're actually not debating in class. We did a debate earlier in the year about like the video Blackfish, and we took a lot of class time for that. So this time I'm like, I wanted to see if it can happen like without me being involved at all. And so what they did was they researched pros and cons. They had to put their they just had to put the URL as to where they got that information from. So if we were challenging it, we could go back to the website to see if it was. And then they had to go on and either agree or disagree with other people's information, and then vote for which pieces of evidence they thought were the best. And so all of this was done outside class, and it was a ton of information, a ton of research that's done. I'm just scrolling. I know you're not reading it, but there's a lot of information out there that they've all posted that have the hyperlinks. So it's a resource page for me now for fish farming. But what they did then in class, I gave them one period to get with a group and do a group essay, because I've never had them do a group essay before. And I said, why not? And they used everything from Tri-Cider, and they did essay whether they're for it. And so going back to like the rubrics, I did give them a rubric on how to do a persuasive essay. Like you had a thesis statement, you had to have evidence, you had to have sufficient evidence, it had to have a counter argument. So I did give them a rubric that I created on how I want their book and what the components it needed to, because that's a style of writing. But they got, they had the day in class to write it. They submitted it on Google Classroom, and it was awesome. They did really well on their essays. And I didn't go, all I said was, hey, we're debating fish farming.
You talked about helping them develop their digital footprint. I would imagine that how they show up on this Tri-Cider, because I would say everyone needs to learn. Arguing is good. We just need to do it in the proper way. So I don't know if you're scanning some of that, but if we have all seen the comments that are posted on articles that degenerate into ad hominem attacks by the second or third point. There's nothing that speaks more to me. I'm mostly impressed with somebody that can pose a rational argument.
Yeah.
So for someone, if you just encourage that skill alone in your kids, they're going to be incredible contributors.
Yeah.
Okay, so lightning round of questions. You want to start with you, May, and then we'll just go through?
Yes. What is a project that you are hoping, no, maybe I should say that because then your students go, I was going to say hoping to see that you hadn't seen?
Good one.
Ooh. I want more engineering projects. I have 2 going on right now where one group is designing, they want to build something with electromagnetic waves to eventually, hopefully deter, sharks and other fish from, coming towards surfboards. And I'm hoping that they connect with a 3D printer. We have some at school. So I'm hoping that the design can utilize a 3D printer. I want more engineering projects. Engineering is one field that's constantly growing, and that there's just actually, the jobs are going unfulfilled because there's not people with the skill set to fill them. And so I want more engineering projects. I don't care what they're building. I just need them to build more things.
Right.
Okay, that's great.
More physics. I cheated my way through physics in college, so I need to learn it again.
Let's see. So my lightning round question will be, first of all, have you taught any other age range or grade level other than high school?
No.
Okay, so let's say that I'm just one of your humanities colleagues. Is there really any reason why I should not think about this seriously and try to develop this kind of atmosphere?
I think everyone needs to think about it seriously, because I think part of it is you're also developing a relationship with your students where you're expecting them to think on their own and do things that they're interested in. And so, like my class is an elective. They chose to be in marine bio. So if they don't like fish, well, they were really stupid when they signed up for the class.
They either like them or they don't like them even more.
Yeah.
So you did.
Yeah, right. And I tell them that. I'm like, well, that was a really dumb decision. And if you need to pass the guidance, I'll write it for you. But, I don't know. I quit marine bio a couple years ago because she didn't know we'd be learning about fish. Like, I can't. So actually, she's a true story. But it helps me learn. Oh, so let me give you an example. No matter what you teach, I have a girl this year that took marine bio. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because her boyfriend's in class. I don't know if it's because, I don't know. I didn't have her as another student, so I have no background of the student. And she's not strong academically in my class. And so that's all I know. That's the only picture I see of her, is her not doing her homework, not participating, always confused, and not doing well in tests. That's all I see. Once we started this project, she developed the most amazing project to align with her future career. She presented it to my class twice. She was so articulate, and it just made me realize that she isn't academically weak at all. And in fact, she thrives in an environment when it's about things that she's passionate about. She is so knowledgeable of the field that she wants already. And I can't even believe she understands everything that she was describing to me. Like, she's learned all this through herself and her own interests. And I even had this conversation with her just last week. I said, I go, take this as an insult or take this whatever. If I didn't have this 20% project, I would have a whole different picture of who you were. And I wouldn't like that other picture, you know, but now I know your strengths and what you're capable of. And so, like, I think differently of you now.
Oh my God, that's like, it like gives me chills. That's such a beautiful
It speaks volumes.
moment for a student and for a teacher to be able to have, to just sort of like that become a connection.
But what I think is so great is that Heidi is so honest with her students, where some teachers would hold some things back. But I think she pushes her students. Like, she basically said to one student, you would be fired. You would not have your job. And
Yeah.
what teacher would, like, she like really is so honest.
But it's coming from a place of genuine concern and genuine
and trust.
Interest in your students. And I love this idea that you get to see them in a whole new lens.
No,
that's the most important part. And that's why I love coaching, because I got to see my students in a different lens. And, you know, I got to see them outside the classroom and learn about who they are as an individual. And you don't get that. Teachers don't get that with 45 minutes with some students. Some students have a lot of baggage that they carry, and some students have a lot of things that are their strengths that you're never able to see in class because of, you know, curriculum, that, tests. And this type of project has really got me to learn about who my students are a little more, and you develop that relationship with them.
So Alana, you have the last one now.
It's two questions, but I think it's combined into one. One of them is, I know we were talking about earlier this morning, how you have your students now that are seniors that were in the video from years ago. So I want to know how that group of students that you've had in your pilot, how they've progressed differently than a cohort of students you've seen years past. And it's probably a two-part question, because the other question we didn't really talk about is how you manage the workflow of the 20% time, which is probably important, but I think they're really one and the same. So
yeah, you know what, they're one and the same in the sense that it's all done digitally. So how do I manage the workflow of 60 projects? Google Classroom. I create the template that has has the proposal, has the rubric, has all the weekly checkpoints. Sorry, if I don't move, my light goes off. Has the Bloom's rubric, and has their final reflection. So everything that they are going to hand in to me and do and write is on one file that I share with them on Google Classroom.
Can you also tell them, Heidi, about because I know that you stress this, and I teach this in every Google Classroom class I teach, about the feedback button and how that feature got developed for you and how important it is for teachers to do that?
Oh, that's a good point. So going back and forth, even with like this particular assignment, because I started my first one in September, and whenever you make an assignment on Google Classroom, I'm working on that file for months. So for my kids to scroll back and find it, it was really cumbersome before they made that assignment page. And so every single day I would and sometimes I'd have my whole class send the same feedback. So 60 people at once are flooding. And I'll get like emails, okay, Heidi, message received. And I'm like, I'm just telling you, it's like really frustrating. And so even this morning I emailed Google after the gym. I was like, I was running and I thought about this, about Google Classroom, here's my feedback. They're like, thanks. You know, it's like 5 a.m. I'm sending my feedback. But these are when I think
dedicated line.
No, she uses a feedback feature. It's a question mark at the bottom.
Well, I do both. I have a dedicated line and the feedback button.
Everyone should do the question mark at the bottom right hand.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And when teachers would email me feedback, I would tell them they have to do that. There are Google engineers that look at that feedback every single day. That is a product that there is 1 degree separation between the people who make it and the people who use it. And you have to remember that. They look at every single feedback. That's how the co-teachers got developed, because that was a huge feedback for them. The fact that now you can delete posts or see posts that were deleted, that was a huge hesitation that hindered a lot of teachers from even wanting to try it to begin with. So the messages are heard loud and clear when you submit them on feed. If you just like, I don't want to swear, but if you just kind of complain, I was going to say the B word, but if you just complain about them in blogs and to other people, they're not hearing that feedback. You have to, and
It's the right channel. You're getting, you're cutting through.
it's like a direct line to the genetic, it's a direct line to the engineers.
All right.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
you didn't answer the one part of the student progression throughout the years with your pilots. That one.
Yeah, so Google Classroom just got developed last year, and I will say that's the easiest way that I've managed the workflow of these projects, because they submit it to me, I turn it back. They resubmit it, I turn it back. They resubmit it, I turn it back. It's very easy on Google Classroom. There's no paper involved. It's just all on that same doc. Whether they shared it with me, didn't share it with me, is not an issue because of how it works in Google Classroom. My freshmen that were in the Chromebook pilot, every year we have a really strong use of the GAFE tools in Clarkstown, and I have to say that my third grade niece has accounts that she uses in class. My 5th grade niece just presented last week, showcase our district put off for Google. She's like the Google girl of her elementary school, so we're so related. They're coming to me with stronger skills. I don't have to teach them how to use Google Docs. They're coming to me knowing that. So it's hard to answer my freshmen to my seniors, because I'm seeing a huge evolution of what's coming up from middle school, because middle school and elementary teachers are starting to really realize the impact it can have in their classrooms.
We see that in other places too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Heidi, I can't think of any better way to end this year of broadcasts on so many different levels.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the one takeaway for me was that this 20% has given you the opportunity to have insight that you might not have into, because we all like to think we know, it's that kid, it's that student, it's how they show up in this class, and it just breaks the mold. But the reverse is true too.
Right.
They get to see you in the most authentic light possible.
As a human. I joked for a long time that, when I used to teach elementary school, and, the kids would think that, what do you do over the summer? Don't you sleep at school? Don't you live at school? They almost at some point didn't see you as a human. You'd see these kids out in the supermarket, and
We don't even have first names. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but they
Right.
can see you as a human and know that you have a life and you have passions, and that once you were like them, and you were learning,
And you are a current learner from
you're
their
always
projects.
learning.
You want to
Absolutely.
learn from them.
Well, that's the thing I stress too. Like, if I didn't love learning and I didn't love kids, boy, I picked the wrong profession, right? And so, I've learned more science being a teacher than I did if I would have been a research biologist, which was my other option. And I'm actually talking about that aha moment tomorrow at a TED Ed event at our school.
Wow.
And so I feel like I'm learning so much more, and I don't want to be bored of my job. I'm 11 years in, I'm not even halfway to retirement. And if I was bored already, like, there's a lot of teachers that are my age with my level of experience who hate their job, and they're bored, and they're struggling with kids' motivation, and they're struggling with the tests, and they're struggling with APPR, or there's a stress. Maybe struggling is the wrong word. Maybe they're just stressed. And I try not to focus on any of that, although it does overwhelm me at times. But this is like something I look forward to. I love Wednesdays. I just love, and I'm useless to them because these are projects that they design. Like last week, the South and North principal were, and all I did was walk around and be like, do you need help? Does anyone need help? Are you okay? Do you need help? Anyone need help? Okay, no. I'm like in their way because they know exactly what they need to do.
Made yourself useless.
But
That's
that's
it.
the ultimate. But that's the
Yeah.
ultimate
Yeah.
goal that we all have for our students, is to.
I want them to do things better than me. Exactly. Like part of my talk, I'm doing a TED Talk on Thursday, and one of the things I'm gonna analyze that line, those that can do and those that can't teach. And that sentence was said to me in college, and it made me almost go a different route academically.
Wow.
And I think, and this is going to be my moment at the end, so I hope I don't ruin it for people that's going to come, but I'm going to change it to, I think those that can do, but then they teach it to others to do it better than them.
Wow.
And those that can't, I think, make the standardized tests.
I think that also comes around to your beginning, that you're confident enough in your abilities to say, I don't know something. And
Yeah.
right there, I think, is a higher level skill that people don't realize, that the teachers that really can say, I'm not an expert, but let's find out together. That's where you're modeling that for your students, and that's more than anybody could ask for.
So Heidi, this was brilliant. And our commitment to you is that we're going to make sure that everyone that we come into contact with watches this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're going to
All
send
right.
it out and broadcast it. Many thanks to you. Many thanks to everyone who joined us either live or watching it during the year. We can't wait to put together the schedule and the calendar for next year. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to have more surprises, more discussions, and we actually invite you to either participate with us here or invite colleagues.
Suggestions.
I have 4 or 5 people that I met at Tech Expo alone that I know I want to get on the calendar because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
voices that
some
need to
of
be
them
heard.
because we.
And Heidi, would you mind if we checked in with you again next year, maybe to hear if anything
Oh my God, I would love it.
going? Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've done that before, but I would sort of like to do a where are they now, like
Right.
what's evolved, because like you're
Yeah.
saying,
Right.
you're finding different things and making changes along the way. So
Well, my new attack is student branding. So if you check up with me next year, I want to merge my blogging and student branding.
All right. Well,
that's
put
excellent.
that down.
Excellent. All right.
Enjoy the
Or
rest
my
of
my 20% in student branding. Sorry, I said that wrong.
Excellent.
And just congratulations again on being
Yes.
2015 Lyric Pioneer
Yeah, I
Award
can't
winner.
imagine what they were thinking when they gave you that award, but you know.
I was just thankful for the bacon that day. Don't you remember?
We've heard the legend about how you managed to get Google to respond to your feedback. That's sort of been like an urban legend that was floating around our office. So now we finally know the person who's made it happen. So congratulations on that too.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to end, and we really appreciate it. We can't wait to see you again next time. Thank
Happy
you.
summer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Appreciate it.
Bye.